This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
Ever been to Alaska? TravelandLeisure.com ranks it as high as 3 on many people's bucket list of places to go. But what if you already live in Alaska? Where do you want to go then? For one group of kids, Kentucky. We talked last February with the coaches from the Southeast Island School District on the Inner Passage about coming to the NASP National Tournament in Louisville. Not a quick trip, and you won't look at home the same way again. Next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Boys were in trouble. About 10 seconds later, he said boys were going down.
A true story.
And it sunk right out from under us.
20 degrees.
Within seconds, one boating trip went
straight down.
The water was bone-chilling.
Once you hit that water, it's so cold you can't move.
The human body wasn't designed for this.
It took my breath away as soon as I hit it, and my hands were so cold in a matter of seconds that I couldn't pop the clip on my waders to get them off.
Conditions were so bad it's amazing that anybody survived.
Perfect for duck hunting, but not for a swim in the middle of a river.
Going overboard is never the thought.
You have to think ahead.
Fun can turn frantic in seconds.
There's no time to react when your world just sinks out from under you.
3 hunters, 2 survivors, 1 reason.
Your life jacket's got your back.
Make sure your first mate isn't your last.
I really don't think that I could have made it without a life jacket.
Your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife reminds you, your life jacket's got your back, and the backing of sportsmen on winter water everywhere. Welcome to Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglin. An archery tournament. Pretty simple. You show up, you shoot. In May, in Louisville, Kentucky, is an archery tournament, and it's a pretty popular tournament. Generally so popular that it continues to set world records year after year for attendance. And for the event this year, registration is expected to top 14,000 student archers. This is grades 4 through 12. It's the National Championship of the National Archery in the Schools program, NASP for short. In 2015 alone, that broke down to 763 schools from 42 states, plus the District of Columbia. It's a program that originated in Kentucky, and has helped make a profound difference in students' lives, grades, their engagement in classes. Now again, this is an archery tournament we're talking about. And for some, showing up for the shoot is, well, easier said than done, especially if you attend a school at Southeast Island School District. This is on Prince of Wales Island, nestled in the Gulf of Alaska. There are 193 students in the entire school district. This isn't just one school. This is an entire district. For the school at Thorn Bay, enrollment is something like 9 freshmen, 8 sophomores, 15 juniors, and a graduating senior class just short of 10. But these low numbers and travel challenges weren't enough to keep one Alaskan girl, Taylor Nyquist, from coming home a national champion. If shooting bullseye after bullseye after bullseye after bullseye against a field of thousands wasn't hard enough, getting from there to here certainly is. On the show today, John Stevens and his son James are the coaches, and they join me on the phone. And gentlemen, I must ask, how in the world did you all start coaching NASP Archery?
He went through the program in 2008. And I went through the program as an instructor in 2008. He went through as a student. And so he shot in high school, and they hadn't had an opportunity to practice. Well, then they shoot in school, and they tell me they're going to compete in the state tournament about 3 months later. And I've watched our basketball team and our volleyball team not exactly finish in the top 5 out of like 18. And so I thought, I don't want these kids to fail, no matter what. I don't want them to fail. So I said, okay, I'm qualified. I'm qualified meaning I have the ability to open the gym and, give them basic instruction. That's qualified. It just means I can have the school's blessing to open the gym. So I said, I'm going to open the gym and I'm going to work with these kids so they don't finish last. So I opened the gym, and I had 3 shooters come in and shoot regularly with me. And all the other sites were shooting too. And that was the first year of 2008. Not a lot of schools in Alaska started. And so our district took 27 out of the 30 places. I was shocked, including, like all firsts, most seconds, and stuff. So that's how we got started. And then Timmy Thomas, the coordinator for us this year, said, you guys got to go to nationals. And so he went ahead and arranged transportation. He arranged everything for when we got there. He arranged for us to stay at Meade County, or put us in touch with Meade County. They arranged transportation for us. They met us at the airport with a bus and a pickup truck. They took us to a church camp, and they provided housing and bedding. The next morning, they threw up in 2 vans and 2 drivers, and for the next 5 days, we didn't drive anywhere. They treated us superbly well and showed us what it was all about. We got to practice with their kids.
Let's hear it from Meade County. They've always done well in NASP.
Yes, they have. The kids, one of the deals was that they found housing. One of the coaches' significant other or wife was a teacher or a principal at one of the schools, the school system. So the deal was our kids had to give programs at the schools and relaying for that. So they went around, and I think they gave 4 or 5 programs that day at various elementary and middle schools for the kids, asking about questions about Alaska. And what we did is we had 3 sites go, Thorn Bay, Hollis, and Kasan. And so each site had about 15 minutes to talk about what was at their school, at their site, and then field questions. And then they threw a potluck for us out at the fairgrounds that had 180 people there one night, and they had to do the program there, too.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a pretty good trip to make. Now, people could come from Hawaii, they could come from Maine, and here being Louisville, Kentucky, at the site of the national tournament every year. But you bring something with you from Alaska, and I think it's something mysterious because a lot of people don't get to go where you are. Looking on a map, John and James, and the best way to describe it is somebody has ever taken an Alaska cruise. Let's say you get on it in Seattle, maybe Vancouver, British Columbia, and then you scoot up through, is that called the Inner Passage?
They call it the Inside Passage, yeah.
The Inside Passage. Do they pass your house on that cruise?
What they do is they would come up, and the cruise ship sailing to Ketchikan was the first stop on most of them. And we're on the island outside of Ketchikan, further west of Ketchikan. So they'd go between us and Ketchikan on the way up, rest of the way up.
It has to be beautiful. I have been there to Anchorage, and I got on a cruise ship. It was a ferry. Took my car that I had rented, my wife and I, and we floated from Anchorage. What's that town over there? Whittier? And yes. All the way over to Valdez, Alaska. Mm-hmm. And so we were out there floating around for maybe 3-4 hours, and it was beautiful. I don't know if the landscape changes the farther you go south or not. Have you been all through that Gulf area there?
Actually, for us, we're real similar to the Olympic Peninsula and the Pacific Northwest. We're in the rainforest.
You're talking about Olympia or Olympic National Park. There in Washington State. When people think Alaska, and I say people, I'm meaning the lower 48, but when they think Alaska, they're automatically thinking ice, snow, polar bears, and 24-hour daylight or 24-hour darkness. How is it where you live down farther south in the state?
Our shortest day basically is December 21st or so, and these are approximate times. About 8:30 in the morning, the sun comes up, and it goes down about 3:30 or 4.
That's the shortest day. So you'll have sunset in the middle of the afternoon. And in the middle of the summer, what's the longest day?
About 3:30, 4 in the morning till about 12:30 at night. I can read it. I've read a newspaper on the 4th of July before the fireworks started without any other light.
4th of July in Alaska. I've been there twice now for 4th of July celebrations in my life. At midnight, they'll actually start shooting the fireworks off, and it's still daylight.
Ours is like 11 o'clock or 12, and it's twilight. It's not super dark. One of my part-time jobs is I'm driving bus in the afternoons for the kids, and it's dark when I get home, but I was curious to see how much. We're gaining 2 minutes and 47 seconds of daylight each day right now.
Where are you? You have the Aleutian Islands, and then over to the right you have something similar to that sort of skirts down the side of British Columbia.
A small portion of Alaska is called the Panhandle. And, I mean, everybody thinks it's hard to get to Juneau. Well, You just get on a plane and you land in Juneau. How difficult is that? Up here, air travel is second nature. Like for us to get to National, our school's got like 9 sites in the school district. And we mean sites, we're talking about individual schools in individual towns. It's located on 2 different islands, and 1 site's on the mainland.
James and John Stevens, coaches of the NASP Archery team in Thorn Bay, Alaska, are our guests. Travel details for the 30-hour jaunt to Kentucky, if fog isn't an issue. Coming up next, you're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back on Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin. Maybe you have been to a reunion or a convention, and they ask, okay, raise your hand, who has come from the farthest away? Well, for the National Archery Tournament coming up in Louisville, the NASP National Championship, it's these guys on the phone with me here, James and John Stevens. They are the coaches from Prince of Wales Island in southeastern Alaska. So how many on your team this season?
Probably this year the high school team will be between 20 to 24, maybe 26.
So as these kids either go on to other interests or graduate and no longer eligible, do you have a steady flow of kids coming along to replace these children?
I don't know, kind of. Middle school's looking pretty scarce on the middle school. We got a lot of elementary school shooters, but not as many middle schoolers.
So in a few years, you'll be back in business. Yeah, with a
I don't think everyone's really going to quit, but the numbers are going to go up and down. 7th grade's got 8 kids in it. 8th grade's got 13. 6th grade's got 10 right now. That's current through the district.
That's not a lot of children.
Not a lot of kids to pick on, no.
Tell me about life in Thorn Bay.
Thorn Bay was built for logging, and logging built the Louisiana Pacific Logging Company up here, and they built this community, and they shut down in the 90s, and pretty much it's just been straggling along. You got the Forest Service here, which employs quite a few people. It's probably the biggest employer in town is the Forest Service, and you've got the city that employs a few, the school. You got a couple of little small sawmills and some loggers, and that's really about it. We don't have, there's a couple fishing boats at the dock, but most of those guys just park their boats here, live here, and then they'll go fish a different area.
There are amount of lodges and tourism where the tourists come up and fish for the summer or explore and stuff.
How are those tourists? Are they pesky, or do you really like them? Every time I've been to Alaska, it's always been as a tourist.
For here, we're so small that they come in like individual groups, and so it's not like they're pretty much welcome that way. It's when you get into Ketchikan and the cruise ship will bring in walking down the middle of the street in downtown. They actually hire crossing guards to keep them from crossing in the middle of the street. It can be real frustrating to try to get around Ketchikan with all the tourists in there, but for us out here, usually it's groups of 3 or 5. There's one boat that comes in, I think. It brings like 50 people, and they don't stay very long. So it's not bad for us that way. Most of ours are kind of like the independent traveler. They'll come up and stay at a lodge and rent a boat, or rent a skiff or a vehicle and do their own thing.
Once upon a time, I lived in Myrtle Beach. That's in South Carolina. That's going to be where the next World Championship is going to be held. And I remember there was a sentiment of folks who lived in South Carolina at the time, down on the coast, and they said, it's great that you come here and you enjoy the sunshine and swim and surf and whatever you do, but we have to live here. We raise kids here, and we go to the grocery here, and we have kids in school here. This is our home. The locals at Myrtle Beach would just wish they could just have the beach for themselves a little more often than they do. Do you get that feeling ever?
I don't get it here in Prince of Wales, for Prince of Wales. Some of the larger communities like Juneau and Sitka and Ketchikan, the tourist ships when they come into Ketchikan on some days they'll actually bring more people to town than live there.
No doubt.
So there might be 10 or 15,000 people come to Ketchikan in one day. That's kind of overwhelming. But for us out here, with no cruise ships really coming to the island, any of the larger ones, I don't get that one. Yeah, we are a curiosity, but with our island is like the 3rd largest in the country. It's got roughly about 2,000 miles of roads or so, and its population probably is between 6,000 and 10,000 year-round residents. You don't see a lot of other people. Some people will complain about a lot of the charter boats taking a lot of the fish, because they do. I mean, if you hit the airport and catch out of that in the summers, you'll see boxes and boxes and boxes of frozen fish go out of here. So there is an impact on the resources, on that resource.
You live there and you're used to it, and I don't. What do you do for fun? And I'm asking this probably based on what people in Kentucky may do and some of the places around the lower 48 for Major League Sports, for movie theaters, that type of thing. Does that exist in Thorn Bay?
On Prince of Wales, which includes Thorn Bay, Craig, Kowak, and all these, it's easy to speak all of them. There is no movie theater. There are no professional sports. Your sporting events, if you want to go, you'll go watch a high school game. We do have cable TV or dish and satellite. Most people do. Most towns have a library. Craig has a swimming pool. There are bars and restaurants. Craig has 5 stores in one area, so I guess you could call it a shopping mall, but it's not much of a mall. It's a gift shop and a clothing shop and a pizza place and fishing game, and I think that's maybe a little restaurant. Pharmacy. Yeah, pharmacy. So you don't really go hang out at the mall much. You may go hang out at the pizza restaurant, or a lot of the kids are pretty much, they're either into the video games and that type of stuff, or a lot of them hunt and fish quite a bit.
If you wanted to go to the hospital, how far away is that from you?
A true hospital is 40 minutes, 35-minute plane flight.
Are these planes sort of sitting there as if they were taxi cabs, or do you have to call and reserve them?
Craig has a taxi, and then there's a company that does call it the Island Ride, where they will pick you up and take you to the ferry if you want to go. Like for us to go to Nationals, we live in Thorn Bay, so we're pretty easy. We drive in about an hour to the ferry terminal. Then we get on the Inter-Island Ferry, which goes between Hollis and Ketchikan, and then then we can start our jet travel south.
It's about 3 hours from there, and then you get to Ketchikan, and then you have to hop on a little ferry that takes you from Ketchikan to Gravina Island, which is where the airport is actually located, and that's about a 15-minute run. And then now you're at the airport, and then you fly south to Seattle, which is about an hour and a half. Then from Seattle to normally fly into Chicago, which is about 3.5, 4 hours. And then these last, I don't know how many years it's been, but ever since I've been taking the team to Nationals, we normally we charter a bus, either Greyhound or Windstar, from Chicago to somewhere in Kentucky, and then we normally the bus stays with us the whole week, and we just ride the bus around, and then when we're done, we charter back to Chicago, hop on the plane, and come home. So,
it's not exactly a quick trip. How many hours does it take?
It all depends. Normally we leave here in the morning. We'll leave Thorn Bay about 4 o'clock in the morning, and we get into Kentucky at, is it about a day and a half, probably?
Probably about maybe 10 o'clock the next morning.
That's quite a ride. I had Googled it. Directions from...
Delay time. Flight delays. Actual flight time is, like I said, James said, it's an hour and a half to Seattle, and then another 3 to 4 hours. So we got about 5 hours, maybe 6 hours max flight time. But the connections are never right there.
I was Googling this. I went to Google Maps and I put in directions from Thorn Bay to Anchorage. In the event you wanted to fly out of Anchorage and you wanted to drive there, take ferries there, 45 hours is 1,800 miles away. Mm-hmm. Now, if you wanted to go a shorter route, let's say you wanted to fly somewhere from Vancouver, British Columbia, you could get there in as little as 31 hours, and you drive about 1,200 miles. Is that right?
See, we're so close to Seattle. That's why everything for Southeast is pretty much based out of Seattle. We're part of Anchorage, but all our freight, all our fuel, everything is barged up from the lower 48 in the Seattle area, where everything else usually, for most of the rest of Alaska, it comes up, it goes way outside and goes direct to Anchorage, or comes in on the rail.
Where you live has to be heaven. I would give anything to go there and just live as one of you for a year. That would be fun.
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's boring, but, like anything else, you have to find your own entertainment.
If you like the outdoors, if you like to fish, I would say that wouldn't be too hard if you like peace and serenity. I suspect that you could find it there.
Another interesting little fact is there are no stoplights on Prince of Wales Island right now, so you'll not see a red light here.
Do you have stop signs? Or is it the honor system?
We have stop signs, but no red lights.
And you drive a school bus.
Yeah, there's 2 sides to Thorn Bay. There's the north side, which is the majority of the town side. It's got the school, city hall, all the pretty much important things. And then there's south side Thorn Bay, which is a lot of just where people live, residence houses. It's a lot quieter. So the distance between The south side and the north side is about 12 miles. And so we live on the south side, and so we drive the school bus. We get up in the morning, or I get up in the morning, and I drive, and I pick up all the kids on the south side, and I take them to school.
Which is like 8 kids.
Yeah, 8 kids, take them to school in Thorn Bay. And then he normally drives the bus in the afternoon and brings them home from town back to the south side.
I was reading you only have a 4-day school week.
That is correct.
That is correct.
What do you gain from that, just having that extra day?
The kids gain missing a lot of school for athletic travel. See, normally if you're looking at the map of Southeast, you can see that it's all islands and it's not easy to get around at. Like our kids went to Catch Can. They left Friday morning last week, and they went over Friday. They played games Friday night. They played games Saturday, and they came home Sunday. So they missed 0 school for that trip.
So you do have what we think about as maybe intramural athletics, high school basketball, for example.
Yes, we had high school basketball. The kids ran cross country, high school wrestling. We have archery and volleyball, and there is a small track program that started last year.
Southeast Island School District. It might be far removed from Middle America, but it's not short on effort or pride. The NASP Archery coaches from there and I will talk about how the kids and the community pull together to fundraise to send their team to Kentucky for the annual NASP National Archery Tournament. Also, our fishing report is just ahead, so stay with us. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Bagman back. We're in our second half hour. If you like this show, you'd like to hear it again or share it on Facebook, 2 easy ways to do it. One, just go to YouTube, put in Kentucky Afield Radio, and you'll find us there, our entire playlist. But an even easier way is go to our Facebook page. Just put in the search box Kentucky Afield Radio. You can like us there and get the weekly link and find out a little bit more about what's going on with the show each week. Easy as that. More with our team from Alaska. But first up, our fishing report.
Hi, this is John Williams with the Fishing Report for Southeast Kentucky. Many of our lakes are going to be stocked with trout this month. We got trout stocking scheduled for Wood Creek Lake in Laurel County, Cannon Creek Lake in Bell County, and also we have a new Finns Lake, Logan Hubble Park Lake at the Lincoln-Garrett County line that will be stocked with trout this month. Also, speaking of trout, Cumberland tailwater is always a great place to catch trout. You know, the normal fare of rooster tails, spoons, small crankbaits work. Also, on the Cumberland tailwater, wintertime's a really good time to try for some big striped bass and walleyes. They congregate near the dam and feed on dead and dying shad as they come through the dam. You can catch those on a variety of baits, including some suspending jerk baits work this time of year. As always, be safe. Good luck.
This is Tom with your fishing report from the Northeast. We've had some reports of crappie action picking up in the upper reaches of Cave Run Lake. Minnows are the go-to for most anglers, but jigs may be a better bet. Fish the standing timber at the edges of the river channel. Muskie fishing should also be picking up, especially if the weather continues to show warming trends. A couple of tips for muskie: your fishing speed should correlate with the water temperatures. In warmer water, use quicker baits. Secondly, they're not called the fish of 10,000 casts for a reason. These fish spook easy, so be cautious how you approach a fishing spot. Lastly, some of our smaller lakes are great bets this time of the year for winter trout fishing. Greenbow and Mill Creek lakes have been mentioned several times as great spots. The Fred House special of Super Dupers and Power baits are the key at Greenbow, and down at Mill Creek, the locals use a pretty neat rig with some marshmallows. Finally, fishing licenses expire at the end of this month, so good luck and stay safe.
This is Rob Rold in the Northwestern Fishery District. At Nolan Lake, anglers are doing well fishing Alabama rigs about 10 feet deep around the channel bends and along the bluff walls and picking up some nice fish. Crappie have also been good at Nolan, really picked up in the last week or so. The bank anglers have been doing great as well, from Barton's Run up to about Cane Run. On Peabody Wildlife Management Area, bass fishing and crappie fishing have both picked up in the last week or so. Finns Lakes will be stocked this week and next week. And the Finns Lakes in our area are Panther Creek Park, Yellow Creek Park, Wayman Morris Park Lake. Those are all in Owensboro and Davis County, as well as Madisonville City Park Lake South in Madisonville and James Bevel Park in Litchfield. Be safe on the water and always wear your life jackets.
Hunting
Hunting elk in Kentucky is a dream come true for many, and I want to add my name to that list.
And I want to add mine.
If you want to add yours,
the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website is Elk Central. The Pick 4 option lets you put your name in the hat for cow, bull, archery, or firearm.
Plus youth tags.
The deadline is midnight, April 30th.
This could be my year.
And it could be yours.
Register for incredible Kentucky elk hunting at fw.ky.gov.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
Baglin back on Kentucky Afield Radio. If you've just joined us, we're talking with two representatives from the archery team at one of those remote islands along the Inside Passage of Alaska. They make the trip each year to Kentucky for the NASP National Archery Tournament, and these kids are great kids, as fun and as motivated as any of the 14,000 that will be coming to the championship this year. Travel for you and me to shopping malls and theaters and sports events, airports is pretty much second nature. For these guys, though, it's not. So tell me, how do the kids get from point A to point B in their regular lives?
We have some kids, a lot of the kids, like from our house to town, it's about 1.25 miles by boat. So if we go to Davidson's Landing, which is like 1/8 of a mile from our house, we could boat town in 1 mile. Some of the kids will run skiffs back and forth. But the nearest town is like, Kasana is 20 miles away, 18 miles away from us. And then Craig is like, Kawak is like 36, Craig is 45. You know, some of the kids will run four-wheelers a little bit, but not between communities, mainly just around town or to get out and do a little bit of their hunting and fishing. But most of them, I think, are pretty much, I don't know, I'd say they're into the internet a bunch or the smartphones and the gaming and stuff. On the bus, I got two kids that are in the back seat. As soon as they get on, they've got the video device going for something.
Sounds like kids from here. When you first came to Louisville, Kentucky for the Nationals, what year was that?
2008, right? Yeah, 2008.
Up until that time, had these children been anywhere nearly as big? Had they been to Seattle, Vancouver, Anchorage?
I can speak for James and Anthony. They've been to Seattle. James had been to Phoenix, Tucson, Las Vegas. It all depends on how the family travels. But in 2012, we had two girls with us, and I'm not picking on them just because they're girls. Both of them had never been out of Alaska before, and she was a junior or senior in high school. In fact, they were both about that age, and one of them had never seen a cow. You
do have a national champion from your school, don't you?
Yes, she worked very hard for 3D this last year.
Her name is?
Kaylee Nyquist.
And she came home to Alaska as the number one in the NASP IBO 3D Archery Challenge for females.
And she came home as second at the IBO Triple Crown.
Nice. That was in New York?
By 3 points.
Was that in New York State?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so you had to compete in that, you had to shoot. I think we saw you in Nashville. Yeah, we did. We had to shoot in Louisville, Nashville, and then New York.
You can't bring that many kids from that far away and not run into considerable expenses. What does it cost, and how do you raise the money?
Normally, it costs anywhere from about $1,000 to $1,300 a child, and that does not include any of the child's food money. So the cool thing about our school district is they're very supportive of
excellence.
Yeah, excellence or perfection. And so if a kid qualifies for the state tournament to go in the top 5 in their division, the district will pay their way. Other than that, I mean, if you're going as a high school team or if you're going in the top, you know, from 5 to 10, the top 5 through 10, then you're kind of on your own for fundraising. So what our school does is we have this kind of, we'll get the kid the ticket, and then we normally do a lot of fundraising after the fact. Like, we burn firewood for heat the school, and so last year we did a bunch of cutting firewood to raise money, and they'll pay us, you know, $200 a cord to cut wood. We've done dinners in the past. One year we painted the school or helped paint the school. One year we made smoke planks for tourists for the city. We do all kinds of interesting things too.
Yeah, last year we did a grocery raffle. Part of it is, with 9 different school sites, coming in. Like last year, we had kids from Kaufman Cove, we had Thorn Bay,
Knockany, Whale
Pass. We had 4 sites. So if you figure 1 or 2 kids from each site, their site is responsible for if they don't qualify in the top 5, their site's responsible for their own fundraising for their kids. So like Thorn Bay, I think we had 4 kids we have to help fundraise for.
Do you get a lot of support from your community?
I think we do. Everything we've asked for, we've had great luck. I mean, our grocery store owner is just a fantastic gentleman. I was at his house on a private business matter, and he said, how'd you do in archery? I said, well, we did this. He said, how much money is it going to cost you? And all of a sudden he said, well, you can count on me for, like, a $500 donation.
Nice.
And I didn't ask. He just plain offered. And after that, it was like, well, what about if we turn into a grocery raffle? He said I can make it, I think it was $700 or $800 worth of groceries. So instead of $500 cash for a ticket, we got $800, let's say $700 worth of groceries, and then we sold like $2,000 worth of tickets. Instead of $500, we turned it into $2,000.
The community has to be proud of what you keep bringing home to the Southeast Islands.
They seem to be. I mean, we've had 2 family night archery shoots this year, which have been kind of interesting when we invite the kids and their families up.
You come in...
I had super great attendance, but we've had probably 20 to 30 people there both times.
I'm looking at a note here I made. I was talking to the NASP president, Roy Grimes. He says something to the effect that first state tournament that you were a part in was basically a virtual tournament because travel is so difficult that you'd shoot the tournament in your own gym and then submit the results online. It's sort of an honor system. You had some other schools from around your area come to your gym and compete. And one of you made the quote in a newspaper article that it was wall-to-wall kids, 28 children.
I think it's 14 or 15 targets across one wall of the gym, and that's all the room we've got.
So you had 28 kids shooting at once.
Yep.
And then you come to Louisville, Kentucky for the Nationals, where there are thousands upon thousands. Well, I don't know how else to ask, but did it overwhelm some of the kids?
I think they're amazed a little bit. I don't know if I'd say they're freaked out or not.
The thing I find interesting to me is, I always tell my kids, and to me it always looks, but to me it looks like, since you're in such a larger area, it looks like, to me, like the targets are a lot closer than they actually are.
Roy told me that as a result, after you went home from that first tournament, that you all started doing something different in your practices. You would practice with every conceivable distraction. That might be somebody nudging you or talking or noise. Tell me about how you changed your practice after that first national.
Well, I mean, for us, it was kind of like, it was just a real eye-opener, and it was, how do you train for
whatever can happen?
Exactly. Because, for example, the first year down there, we took our bows down there, and my first nationals, I borrowed a bow. I didn't even take my own bow because at the time, luggage fees, you'd get whanged $50 to $75 a bag to travel. And then my second year down there, what did we do? Our second year, we actually had these 2 Action Packer totes, and we actually just took all, I don't know if this matters or not, but we took all our bows apart. So we put 5 bows per box. You could put 5 in a box and just be under the weight limit. We took them all apart and just threw them in there, and then we got down and we put them together and we shot them a little bit. So, I mean, it was, you have to practice like you've lost your bow. You've got to practice, there's a bunch of noise, nudging.
Remember, Nationals, your shots, your second year, they had an emergency stop.
Yeah, in the middle of the scoring round. So just being prepared for the unexpected almost.
Well, clearly it paid off. I can't remember how you fared in that first year, but here last year, in 2015, that's when your girl came home with the national championship from IBO. So you've gotten better along the way, haven't you?
Yeah. As a team, our bullseye team hasn't. Our best year was 2013, but it just goes, and it's all a mix of the kids and stuff. And we've lost the first year we went. Some bows got lost. They came in the day before or the night before. We're staying an hour out of Louisville. We flew to Louisville that year because there were so small, few of us, and the airline delivered the bows out to us. So we planned for not having our bow. Last year at New York, the NASP didn't have the most important scoring software. They didn't have the newest update that counted more than 10. So when we finished the first day, or when Haley finished the first day of the IBO shoot, she was tied for first. So we go home Saturday night thinking she's going to come in Sunday before the awards and settle it with a shoot-off. We did not plan on having one of our kids worry about having to shoot all that night. Normally at NASP, you don't worry about those things. So that's something we totally miss as coaches. What would happen is, normally at NASP you shoot and you know what you do, but you don't know if you're going to make the shoot-off until the last minute, then you go do it. But it was like, can you imagine going home Saturday night thinking you're tied for first? We didn't think about it.
One thing I like about the tournament, when I get there, and I'm one of the chief announcers, I'll get there a couple of days before tournament action actually begins. They're setting up the range, and this place is huge, like 3 or 4 football fields long, 300-plus targets. This thing is spectacular. I will get there, and there are all these kids, and I will be thinking to myself, where are these kids from? How do they get off school just to come here and roll targets or help stripe the lanes? And you know who that is? That's you and your team. There's no job too big or no job too small. But what is it that possesses you to come in so much early and help to set up that range?
There's a couple things. It gets us a free lunch that day. Normally, NASP will spring for lunch, and so that's a little bit less money the kids have to bring. It gets them in the building if they've never been in the building when there's not a lot of people in there. And also lets me meet a lot of the people in NASP and know a lot of the vendors and things. And it's a lot better on setup day because it's not as hectic. I mean, it's hectic, but it's nowhere near like the tournament's actually going. So it's just a good time to connect with people, see people, talk with people.
The other thing is for us, living up here for Alaska, I've been here since 1978 in 2 different communities. You don't always get out when you think you're going to leave. With fog or whatever mechanicals on the jet, you may not fly out the day you think you're going to do. And with us spending as much money as we do, we like to allow an extra day of travel. We also have a 4 to 5 hour time zone change, so we kind of like the kids to get a little bit acclimated, although I'm not sure that's done us a lot of good in the past. And the other thing is our superintendent believes in giving something back. He encourages the setup with us and stuff. That, guys, if you're going to go do there, if we're going to pay your way, we want a little bit of work out of the kids. And it's been very beneficial. I mean, we've met a lot of great people.
That's great, so it's reciprocated.
Yeah.
It ain't just what you get, it's what you give. We're talking about the experience of one school archery team. 14,000 archery students will converge on the Derby City come May, and the largest state in the Union has its eye on a return trip to the largest archery tournament on Earth. Back with our final few with the coaches. Don't go away. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Charlie Baglin back on Kentucky Afield Radio with our final few minutes as we talk about archery in the last frontier, way up north to Alaska. Getting to Kentucky for them is a trip.
The other thing is for us, in our school system right now, this is the only trip the kids take out of Alaska is pretty much the NASP Archery trip. And if we're spending $1,000, we might as well try to do some cultural things and throw some education in on each trip, too, for them also. And there's a lot of fun things, too, that they try to do.
The United States of America is a pretty darn big place, and I'm going to trust that you go other places other than Louisville, Kentucky.
Some years we've stayed in Chicago and let the kids go to Six Flags. We checked out the zoo in Chicago. We've done a lot of cool things on these archery trips.
Will you be back in May?
That all depends on how the kids shoot. I believe the kids will shoot well enough, but see, where you guys are at down there, you get all these little inter-district tournaments or little state tournaments, and everybody knows kind of who to expect. Up here, it's kind of like a wild card. We shoot on the island, and we know who's good on the island, but we never know if a new school started up north or a school dropped out of powerhouse school quit. So you really it's almost a crapshoot till the state scores come out. I call some of my buddies up north and say after we're both done shooting, hey, how'd you do? And we can kind of talk a little bit, but you never know who did what or what until our scores normally are not until about April. I think sometime in April or late March.
Usually, the first week of April or the last week of March, we know if we qualified or not. But see, for us coming down there like that, we're kind of picky. We really want to make the first tier selection so we get our choice of flight times. It just makes planning our whole trip easier if we know we can all shoot and we can all shoot at one time. Last year we stayed about 15 minutes out of Louisville, which wasn't too bad. Sometimes we were out at Meade County. We stayed out there a couple of years, so we had an hour bus ride in.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal, But if you're coming in 3 or 4 times to shoot, it takes time out from doing other things down there. The kids usually like to do some other things, too. You know, one year we stayed in Corydon, Indiana, which worked out pretty good. For us, it's the bus cost is the tickets from Louisville to Chicago for about 20 people, and savings in hotel will almost pay for most of the Greyhound or most of the bus.
Yeah, because it's almost $200 an airline ticket between Chicago and Louisville, so, and that pays for the bus for the week, you know. So it's really not. And then we're not renting cars, we're not in different groups and going everywhere. So it's worked out pretty well. I don't particularly like the 7-hour bus ride, but
you know, with a group that size, I mean, one year we rented 3 vans and out of Meade County, that was great. Except one of us got lost and got back to camp 3 hours later. You know, we're used to. With no stoplights on Prince of Wales, there's 2-lane traffic is the best we're going to have. Top speed is 50 miles an hour. Sometimes on a drive to Ferry, which is like 60 miles, I may meet 5 cars. I think when we went out one year, we saw 21 deer, and we met 2 vehicles going for the early morning ferry trip.
Well, I would love to be where you are. But a lot of people will say, these people live out in the boonies, and you really don't know what a big city is like. And maybe you don't. Maybe you don't really care. I think that life is precious where you are. I think that would be great. I would love a change of scenery like you have. Do you think that the kids there prefer what you have there versus, or would they say, oh, I want to live in Kentucky?
We've got one girl that when she graduates from high school, first thing she wants to do is get out of Alaska. She's looking any place else to go to college. Others will be happy to go in-state. You know, we're all individuals.
I remember in Alaska, in Anchorage, we'd go to Pizza Hut. I don't know, you have Pizza Hut, McDonald's, that sort of thing there? And
Ketchikan has a McDonald's and a Subway, and that's it.
And but the prices were so crazy high because the distribution is so stressed up there. You can't really get much, and so the price is higher.
Yeah, we're paying $3.50 a gallon right now for gas, or about $3.40 a gallon for gas. Oh, the national average is under $2, or right at $2 a gallon. We go, I wish.
So everything is pricey up there.
Yeah, but, you know, our air is clean and clear. We don't have any smog issues. We don't have too much. There's not a lot of congestion issues and traffic jams. Again, you can be happy wherever you live if you get the right frame of mind.
Here's one last thing I wanted to ask. I remember looking at you and your team, and I would say these kids could be from basically anywhere in the country. Because when I think Alaska, a lot of times I will think about Native Alaskans, Eskimos. If I'm in Hawaii, I will look for Native Hawaiians. Or maybe even where I live, there are a few North American Indians. You have the indigenous people. And are all of your kids pretty much born and raised there, or are there what we would think about as Native Alaskans on your team?
I would say most of our kids' parents have all moved in. Thorn Bay was established in 1957, I think, as the largest logging camp in the world to do the logging for LP. You know, a lot of the other communities all grew up as for our school district, all came up as part of fishing villages and stuff.
Well, no, the majority of our communities in the school district were all logging.
Yeah, they were. You know, Kasan is a native community, but it's very small. It's got like 13 kids. Yeah. And then the other school district, while it's not part of our district on the island, is called Heidelberg, which is a Haida community, which is native. And basketball is very big in Heidelberg. We work with those folks down there, and we're having a hard time getting people really, really interested in archery. There's not a lot of native students in the Island School District.
Well, gentlemen, I certainly appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a delight, and I certainly hope to see you at the NASP National Tournament.
We hope so. We plan on it. Well,
we're training the kids to do their best, so we will be there.
We've been talking to John and James Stevens, father-son duo, NASP archery coaches from Thorn Bay, Alaska. The tournament is the second weekend of May. It's at the Kentucky Exposition Center in Louisville. It is open to the public. It is the largest archery tournament in the world. You should see it. As a final note, let me say this. We often forget how our old Kentucky home is actually a pretty good place. And maybe it helps every now and then to get little reminders of how others see Kentucky, the opportunities that others find here. It's nice on occasion to realize how a small team of archery students from way up in the islands of the North Pacific work all year to come to Kentucky. and the way their small fishing villages and logging towns fundraise to give them a chance to come to Kentucky and prove themselves. Why? Because in their eyes, those students are already champions. For the National Archery in the Schools program's national tournament, 14,000 boys and girls will be coming to Kentucky from all across the USA, and each one will bring their own story. And if we treat them well, they will go home with one they'll never forget. We are out of time. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you to join us in a week, and we'll go inside outdoors again, right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.